Meanwhile, Evander Holyfield in his dressing room, as imposing as ever, a man who always looks as if he were freshly chiseled from granite. And you have to believe, even though he's fighting an undefeated fighter, if he had his druthers, Ferdy, he would much rather be getting ready right now for a fellow by the name of Mike Tyson. But while he continues to wait for Tyson, Holyfield, to his credit, stays busy. What else can he do?
That's exactly what he must do. If he's ever going to get an edge on Tyson, it's continuously fighting, sharpening his skills, getting his conditioning right, so when he steps in with Tyson, he's at the peak of his form. Meanwhile, Tyson's running around trying to keep up with Don King's nightlife and fighting easy fights. If this goes on much longer, when they come in, it'll be even money.
And with that, we have an update for you on the much-anticipated showdown between Iron Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening. 12 rounds of boxing for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. Boxing's top prize. And Evander Holyfield has emerged as the most worthy challenger among the heavyweight contenders. But instead of battling Tyson, he must fight for recognition in a group that ranges from pretenders to preachers.
I think Tyson Foreman is probably the #1 fight fan show right at the moment. I think the media and the boxing experts will tell you Tyson Holyfield. But I'm not so sure really that Holyfield at the moment has the name throughout Middle America that will command the audience that George Foreman will.
Foreman has a bigger name than Evander Holyfield does. When Time magazine writes about a heavyweight fighter other than Mike Tyson, they write about Big George Foreman. There's a curiosity thing there. He's on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Evander Holyfield is a more serious fighter. He's the second best heavyweight in the world, but he hasn't caught the public's imagination yet.
Holyfield would probably be the best match, but Don King is holding off probably for a bigger payday.
The only fight that might be of any interest is Evander Holyfield, and I don't really think Holyfield could beat him. It might be interesting to see him fight 2 or 3 guys in one night. That might be the best of it all.
Without a doubt, this is the undisputed champion of the world. He claims he can beat any man alive. Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield are on a collision course. Holyfield has earned the right to meet the champion. But for some reason, the road to the showdown has been filled with obstructions and detours. Why the delays?
Don King doesn't want it to happen right now because he's in control. He has the heavyweight champion, and the person who has control of that is the one that really makes the biggest decision. Number 2 is that it's just one of those things that all we can do is just keep fighting and get there on our ability, or on Evander's ability. And so it's going to come off. It's just a matter of time.
Don King is afraid that knows that Evander Holyfield is the only fighter who can beat Mike Tyson.
It seems at this point that Don King, and he said this to me, he feels that it needs a build-up. One wonders, though, if there are other motives here, whether King's enmity with the Dubas who are involved with Holyfield is part of his reason for not making this fight go right away.
Y'all been using me for the scapegoat for too long now. Don King is restraining. Don King is evading. Don King is preventing. Don King is stopping. He's blocking. Well, it's open no sesame now. You know what I mean? Come all ye heavy laden. You know, bring your burdens on and your purses, because we gonna whoop Evander Holyfield and give him a good old-fashioned Southern whooping, and he knows how that is.
Finally, Don King and Mike Tyson have agreed to accept the challenge of Evander Holyfield. Why did it take so long for them to acknowledge the #1 contender? Was it because King wanted to control Holyfield's future the way he does Tyson's?
I have never ever asked for an option on Evander Holyfield. If one was offered to me and I thought that it was in the best interest of Mike Tyson, I would take it. But I've never asked for any options on Holyfield. There's never been a hold-up on options. There's never been an instrument of contention where we're concerned with Holyfield.
When the former cruiserweight king stepped up to the heavyweight ranks, he had to prove he belonged there. Holyfield's destruction of Michael Dokes served notice to the boxing world that he was the top contender, and began to convince King of the box office potential of Tyson versus Holyfield. For an encore, Holyfield flattened Adelson Rodriguez.
The fight is now is a vintage fight now, and it's time now to really start promoting. And it still needs a lot of more hot sauce, but we're gonna put that in there, as you said, in salsa, in Hispanic, in Latin. I mean, in Spanish, you know what I mean, in caliente. We're gonna make it a hot fight, a muy grande la pelea. So what we got to do now is it's time to get it on. He get by Stewart, then it's time for him to get ready for the undefeated, the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, the baddest man on planet Earth, the baddest man in the universe.
Team Tyson has picked up the gauntlet. So when will we see the showdown?
We want Evander Holyfield, and we want to be able to get him sometime in the very near future. There ain't but 2 pay-per-view dates to go on, is June or November. And so Evander Holyfield certainly will be on one of them, preferably on June. So if we can work out all the little details and what a Duvas can do their little Indian dance and make themselves important, then we can make the match and do it as quickly as we possibly can. So there's no more playing around now. It's all over, Dan. It's all over, Lou. Get ready to bring your gladiator to the center of the ring, and we will be right there to meet him live and in living color.
Well, as they say, you heard it here first. We should point out that those remarks by Don King came before Mike Tyson took ill, thus forcing postponement of the November 18th fight with Razor Ruddock in Edmonton. Now, we spoke to Don King today from London, and here is what he told us. Tyson Ruddock will take place in January. We also have a commitment to fight Buster Douglas. If Holyfield wins tonight, then Tyson Holyfield will be in June or in the fall of 1990. If Evander beats Stewart dramatically, my preference is June. He also said, quote, Mike wants Holyfield, unquote. But to the business at hand, do you think there's a possibility that Holyfield could be looking ahead beyond Alex Stewart to Mike Tyson, really falling into a trap?
He's incapable of that. Evander Holyfield's the most focused fighter that I've ever seen. He takes one fight at a time. He gets in there, he tries to get out as fast as he can and go home, because he is every inch a fighter.
We had expected to be coming to you live from Edmonton in Canada, but an illness to heavyweight champion Mike Tyson forced postponement of his 10th title defense, so the champion packed up and came home. When last we saw the Tyson machine in July, it was for 93 short seconds. Later you'll get an update on when and where we may see him in the ring again.
Of course, the fight that we had originally expected to see tonight would have been in Edmonton, Canada, between Mike Tyson and Razor Ruddock. Let's look back now at how that fight was postponed and the details of this latest passage in the curious life of the heavyweight champ, Mike Tyson.
Iron Mike Tyson's 93-second disposal of Carl Williams marked a bittersweet ending to his 9th successful title defense. To put it bluntly, Tyson's fights haven't lasted long enough to satisfy Las Vegas and Atlantic City casinos, who are now hesitant about dishing out multi-million-dollar site fees to Don King for the right to host Tyson's quick executions. Mike's cameo appearances in the ring have yet to worry his promoter. King's solution is to take the Mike Tyson show on the road to foreign countries willing to pay the big bucks to watch the heavyweight champion. Tyson's first stop was to have been this evening in Edmonton, Canada, where local promoters had put up $3.5 million to host what they were calling the Cold War between Mike and Jamaican-born, Toronto-raised challenger Donovan Razor Ruddock. As usual, Tyson arrived in Edmonton 4 weeks early to train. and acclimatize himself to new surroundings. But on the very first day of training, there were indications the fight was in trouble.
That sluggish feeling you're feeling right now is only from traveling. It'll leave you. That's why you're here a month, to get that out your system. That's why you're feeling like that.
I have a slight cold. I get my cold out. I just had a rough week.
Are you going to try and maybe hit some of the night spots in town?
No.
A second smoke signal went up when the champ, having looked lethargic, having complained of illness during his workouts, missed 4 days of training. King flew in Tyson's personal physician from Las Vegas. And then, on a Wednesday, a news conference was held, and the Cold War in Edmonton was temporarily put on ice.
Mr. Tyson is and has been bothered by a condition known as costochondritis. It's a pleuritic chest pain. Because of that condition, it will be impossible for him to fight November 18th and for us to hold the fight card.
The lining of the lung on the inside gets an inflammatory process in it, and anytime you breathe or you take a deep breath, it causes you to have the pain. And for somebody, in his condition to be able to go and spar or fight, and we don't want him to get hit on the ribs or any of that sort. But in the meantime, he cannot jog, he cannot run, he cannot spar, so there is no way we're going to allow him just to do that.
Co-promoter Ed Bean had put up the money to host the fight. The cancellation took him by surprise.
This thing came on so quickly, we're going to have to sit down, we're going to look at our contract again, we're going to have to study it, and then we're going to have to negotiate and talk with Mike, or with Don King.
All I can tell you categorically is that we want to fight, and we want to fight in Edmonton, and we want to fight Razor Ruddock if he's still around.
And there's no question in Ruddock's mind that he will be around. He's accepted the cancellation and says he will use the extra time to better prepare himself.
I'm looking forward to the fight. I have no animosity against him. I'm an athlete, I'm a gladiator, and I'm looking forward to the challenge. But in this term, they're thinking about a lot of money, and they have to take every precaution necessary. So it's hard for me to judge him and say that, well, whatever they're doing is wrong or whatever, because maybe if I was in his shoes and I'm talking about millions of dollars, I'd probably do the same thing. So it's hard for me to judge him. I just want the fight to go on, and that's it.
Dapper Dan. Dapper Dan.
Dapper Dan. The Tyson and King entourage wasted little time blowing out of Edmonton on a flight back to the States, where Tyson claimed he'd be resting. But what would a Tyson fight or non-fight be without greater controversy? Recently, some reporters have questioned the severity of Tyson's maladies after having spotted the champ in a favorite Broadway nightclub at 2:30 in the morning. And so the Tyson saga continues.
And now this week, developments have put the picture in focus. Promoters in Edmonton unable to come up with the money to finalize the deal. So the next fight for Tyson in Tokyo, Japan at Korakuen Stadium against James Buster Douglas of Ohio, a large but relatively light-hitting heavyweight. That bout to take place on February 12 as the 10th title defense for the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, who joins us now live right here at ringside in Las Vegas as we come back with a chance to talk to Mike Tyson. First of all, Mike, your health. How is the pleurisy condition which caused you to cancel the bout in Canada?
Well, in my opinion, it was never really that bad to cancel the fight. But my physician came up and I had this slight pain while I was breathing, and it made me uncomfortable. I'm sure if I would have just perhaps trained around 2 more weeks or so, I felt good to fight. I don't believe in canceling a fight because you don't feel good. I feel regardless of the situation, the show must go on. But I respect my physician, Mr. Elias Ganem, and he said it really wasn't worth it, so we canceled the fight.
You feel bad for Ruddock?
Hey, I wasn't worried about anyone beating me and taking my title, but that means.
You were here tonight as a fight fan, Mike. Just give us your impressions of Chavez and your impressions of Chavez when he fights Taylor.
I'm looking for a spectacular fight. There's by no doubt there's going to be a war. And from this last performance, Chavez is always a business-like, calm, collect killer. But I've seen him get hit a few times, punches that very, it's unnecessary to be hit with by a fighter that's not of a high caliber of a Melody Taylor. And it's just a matter of fact, because fighting is all in the mind, I believe. It's all mental. And if he goes and you have a totally different frame of mind against Taylor, anything can happen. But Taylor, I give him a good chance.
Okay, let's speaking about other fights besides your own. Did you see the Holyfield-Stewart fight? And if you did, your impression of Holyfield?
Well, it's tough. He was in there with a guy that was up for the occasion, and it's hard to fight well against a guy that's in there, and he's totally up for that fight. He's up particularly for you. He dreams about you, he thinks about you, he's nervous, and that's all he thinks about. And he was up for the fight. He was hurt a couple of times, but he refused to go down because, like I said before, the heat of the moment, the adrenaline's pumping, and he wanted to give a good account of himself, and he came to win.
Which brings us to the obvious question. You're fighting Buster Douglas in Tokyo on February 12th. You know that the real public interest is not in a Buster Douglas fight, but when are you going to fight Evander Holyfield? Printed reports this week suggest it'll happen in June. Will it?
Well, I don't know anything about the fights, but like I said before, I'm not worried by no means of anybody taking the title. So whatever it is, I mean,
if you were in shape, you'd fight him tomorrow.
By all means.
We know you're not concerned about the opponent. How do you regard Holyfield in relation to other heavyweights you've fought? I mean, he seems to fight with a champion's heart.
Well, like I say, I'm watching him fight. I'm a Holyfield fan just from watching it because I enjoy watching him fight. He's an exciting fighter, and he punches in good combinations, and he shows, as you said, the determination and the will of the champion. And I always look forward to matching my skills with his. But like, as everything else, by all means, he's a good fighter. I may even see an outstanding fighter.
When are you going to training for Tokyo, Mike?
Well, believe me, I'm training now.
All right. Thanks very much for your time. Best of luck to you. And we will see you again February 12th, Korakuen Stadium, the Big Egg in Tokyo, Japan.
Yeah.
So the heavyweight champion makes his way back to an adoring public, which has mobbed us here.